There's a new way to enjoy Imagination Skyway. You can now listen for free with or without a Patreon account by heading to patreon.com/Imagination Skyway. Here you can enjoy the show free from programmatic ads and read through listener comments on specific episodes. Plus, sign up for a free member account to engage with other listeners on specific episodes and enjoy bonus content, or sign up for a free 7-day trial of one of our paid subscription options for even more content. Learn more at patreon.com/Imagination Skyway. Welcome aboard Imagination Skyway, your grand podcast tour of the magic. I'm your host, Matthew Krull, and in today's episode, we're going to discuss a topic that, quite surprisingly, it took me nearly 8 years to finally discuss. One of the most popular attractions at Disney and the wildest ride in the wilderness, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. Opening at Disneyland Park in 1979 and Magic Kingdom Park in 1980, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad is a Disney classic, now found at so many Disney parks around the world, and still one of the most popular attractions at the park. As the Walt Disney World version enters a lengthy refurbishment, I thought this would be the perfect time to discuss the history of this attraction, the story and legends told through the ride, and some fun facts and details you might have missed about this Magic Kingdom mountain. At the end of the show, we'll return to Imagination Central, where I'll share ways in which you can stay connected with Imagination Skyway, how you can discuss this topic with others, and how you can help support and inspire the future of this show. Hang on to your hats and glasses, because this here's the wildest podcast in the wilderness. As we talk about different attractions at Disney, there's one that now that I've been podcasting for 7.5 years, it's amazing. I have not discussed this attraction yet, and it's a big one. It is, of course, the wildest ride in the wilderness, which is Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. And because this is such a major attraction, this is the second time I am ever having an attraction-based episode with somebody else, but it is someone who has been on the show before. So I want to welcome back Kelly Washington. How are you doing, Kelly?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm so excited for this conversation.
Me too.
It was, I think, and here's why, not just because it's about Thunder Mountain, but I believe you were the one who asked me, have you done Thunder Mountain yet? And I said, no, but I should. And then I'm like, well, I got to bring Kelly on now because you know Big Thunder Mountain lore, maybe even better than I do, which is great.
It's fascinating. And I'm very honored. I didn't realize that you don't usually have guests for your ride-based podcast episodes. So thank you for having me.
Of course. I'm changing things up. This makes it more interesting. It'd be like two Disney fans after riding Thunder Mountain sitting down at Pecos Bill or Rancho de Zocalo and having a meal and talking about the attraction together just to geek out. So yeah, that's what I'm picturing here. So before we jump in, I mean, we're gonna go through, for those who are listening, the history, which goes back even before Thunder Mountain. We'll talk about Thunder Mountain. You'll learn, I hope, some things about the story of the attraction, which maybe you've not thought of before, the mythology, how it ties into the Society of Explorers and Adventurers, details. There's just so much about Thunder Mountain. But before we get to that, just to kick us off, I thought it'd be fun to go through some rapid fire questions. So this is maybe the easiest one of these, because I feel like everyone has a favorite. Do you have a favorite version of Big Thunder Mountain Railroad?
I did go to Paris last year for the first time, and I can't lie. For me, yeah, Paris definitely, their Big Thunder is amazing, and the lore that ties into it, I think, makes it a little more special. But then I'm partial to Disneyland because it's my home.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna actually second your answer. I do think most Disney fans who have been to the Disneyland Paris version will say yes, this is the best one. And I think
Yeah.
Tony Baxter has admitted it's the best one because it's the one that he got to start with the blank slate without having to put it into an existing piece of real estate, but build it into the foundation of the park. So
Right.
makes it so much more different. This is kind of a spin-off question of this and kind of a yes or no, but Hong Kong Disneyland, do you feel that Big Grizzly Mountain Runaway Mine Cars is a part of the Thunder Mountain family or its own category?
That's a good question. I do think that it is part of the lore. I think that in terms of like the mythology, it does have a little piece, but I do think it's a standalone attraction.
Yeah, that's a good answer. It's not a yes or no. It's somewhere
Yeah,
in the
sorry,
middle.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same style of answering questions. It's very appropriate response. It's like, well, it depends. Not yes or no. It kind of depends on how you
Yeah.
define this.
In
But
terms of
yeah,
in the same way that how you said, like, the Adventurers Club and all, is involved in Big Thunder, I think that's kind of how it is attached. But I don't think the ride is a Big Thunder ride.
that's fair. That's fair to say. Um, okay, so next question, which again I feel like has a common answer, but maybe not for everybody. What is your favorite row to ride Thunder Mountain in?
Wherever I get seated the fastest.
That is an answer I haven't heard before. Um,
But
I
the
actually
back is fun.
the back is fun, and everyone swears by row 15. I'm actually a row one guy, which is
Ooh,
a very atypical answer, but and it's not the wildest. The wildest is definitely row 15, but I like having that train right in front of me. I know it kind of distorts the view a little bit, but it's got a very different feeling than row 15, and especially because the trains are long. Sometimes when you're going over the edge of the lifts, you
yes.
hang there a little extra longer, almost halfway down the drop, and then get going, and then you get pushed up hills instead of getting pushed down hills. It's just a very different experience. So
It's and technically you are not going any faster or slower depending on where you sit.
that's right.
That's not how roller coasters work, but it does feel that way when you're in the back. But I like the front too, just for the excitement of like feeling like I'm part of it. I'm like I'm really in the moment.
Yeah, that's a great answer. But I like the whatever gets me on
Yeah,
the
whatever
fastest.
gets me on the
I think it's a
fastest.
lot of people. Um, two more. Ride
Yes,
during the day or ride after dark?
after dark.
Yeah.
That's an easy one. I think some of my most magical moments have happened on Big Thunder. There is nothing more special than being at Disneyland, getting on Big Thunder, and the fireworks go off as you're climbing the hill. Like I cried. Yeah.
That has happened to me too. Yeah, at dark is or after dark is just so special. And it's when at any Disney attraction you can completely control the show lighting. So seeing the lanterns lit in the caverns, and so it's just a lot of fun.
So you agree
Uh,
with that night?
I do agree that
Okay.
at night is the best, and especially, I mean, don't forget, I'm local to Orlando, so trying to stand in that outdoor queue in the
Oof.
middle of the summer, in the middle of the day, is not as enjoyable as late after dark when the sun is down. Even if it's hot, it's a little bit cooler, and you're not sweltering in that heat. So
Yeah.
I'm going to say for that reason too, after dark. And last one, safety spiel. Where does this safety spiel rank on your list of like iconic safety spiels? Because it's certainly one of the most iconic ones.
um,
I don't need a
it's
number. Like it's number seven. Like
yeah, it's yeah, it's definitely high up there. And before we got on the air, we were talking. I told you I recently went to a Rolly Crump art exhibit for friends and family, and I met the guy who does the safety spiel, who now who covers it after the original voice actor is no longer with us, kind of thing. And he did it, and I was like, oh my god! I mean, it's high up there. It's no Haunted Mansion, but
yes, it's. I mean, Haunted Mansion was an original, so it's probably one of the best second generation ones. But I
yes.
agree. Being at Walt Disney World, although it's not a quote unquote attraction, the Please Stand Clear of the Doors, Jack Wagner safety spiel is
Oh,
probably the most iconic.
oh, for
But
sure.
Thunder Mountain is up there with Haunted Mansion, Pirates of the Caribbean, probably even above Pirates of the Caribbean, actually. So it's got a lot of history to it, and it's just so much fun. Wildest ride in the wilderness. If you can say that with that same gusto, then I would love to hear that because that's it's such a fun start to the adventure.
It is.
Yeah. So let's talk about Thunder Mountain. I mean, this is going to be such a fun conversation to geek out about this together. And I feel like to properly discuss Thunder Mountain, like so many Disney attractions, we have to technically step back to before Thunder Mountain and start with a not so little attraction that was never built by Marc Davis, Imagineer Marc Davis, that was going to be called Western River Expedition. What do you know, or what can you share about this project alongside Thunder Mesa?
So, this was supposed to kind of be the biggest attraction that was going to be at Walt Disney World. Because right after Walt Disney World opened, they had already planned on expanding. They already knew that they were going to make the park bigger. So the idea was making Thunder Mesa was going to have multiple attractions in it. And it was just going to be this large plateau as the show building, which I miss some of the show buildings being more hidden, not just painted blue.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was going to be the expansion for Frontierland and kind of be the background.
It was, and it was going to be, from what I understand, it was going to be and I think it was actually called, if I go back, there's some great information and history that you can find about both of these in Imagineering books and in history pieces that were written by Disney historians. And the idea of Western River Expedition was going to be kind of this Pirates of the Caribbean, or the equivalent of Pirates of the Caribbean in
Yes.
Walt Disney World, because they never planned to build Pirates of the Caribbean, which I've talked about in the episode I did about that attraction, because they thought it's too close to the real Caribbean. Why would someone want to, who's around here, wants to ride an attraction based on something that's geographically so close? And of course, they were wrong about that, but they wanted to follow that same formula. And I think they, from what I read, they referred to it even as quote unquote Cowboys of the Caribbean because it had such a similar feeling to it. This really extensive water attraction with lots of animatronics. Marc Davis spent 5 years working on this project, so it wasn't even just a piece of concept art. It was really an involved project. He worked on it in conjunction with Roy O. Disney, and who was Dick Irvine, who was then the president of Imagineering at the time. And I mean, it even extends, if we go further back in history, on an idea he had for a Lewis and Clark River expedition that he never got to build for what was going to be a St. Louis indoor theme park that Walt Disney was considering. And to your point, it was going to be this 4-story show building. It was going to be decorated to look like the orange mesas of the American desert and Monument Valley. And because it was so massive, the Walt Disney World Railroad would have actually gone through the building to offer guests kind of this glimpse into the attraction, like when you pass by Tiana's Bayou Adventure and you get that look into the finale scene, or on the People Mover in Walt Disney World going through Space Mountain and getting to see that attraction, would have had that same feeling to it with the Walt Disney World passing through. And it would have had over, which is incredible, or about, not over, would have had 100 animatronics, which is such a large number for an attraction. I think I never counted Pirates of the Caribbean animatronics, but it is kind of at that scale of just, it's filled with animatronics.
I'd have to look back in my notes because I do have the exact number written down somewhere. But I would have to go and open those back up. Yeah, it was going to be
fine.
like cowboys, Native Americans, bandits, saloon girls, like, all in how, when one of the ideas of the Haunted Mansion is that we had our Richard the Crow leading us through. This was going to be an owl named Hoot Gibson.
That I didn't even realize. No, that's actually very cool.
Yeah.
Now, do you know, Kelly, because you know your Disney history well, do you know that there are some animatronics developed for Western River Expedition that are still at Walt Disney World?
No, I did not know that.
So this is a fun little fact. If you ride one of the best attractions in Walt Disney World, Living with the Land. You will find
Living with the
some
land.
bison and or buffalo, depending on how you phrase it, and prairie dogs in that desert scene. Those were originally built for Western River Expedition, and that's how far along the project was getting.
I did not know that.
I
Yeah,
read that up in an article from Jim Corcus, who I trust as a Disney historian. So I'm going to take this as correct information.
that's very cool. I when I think of, I don't obviously know Marc Davis personally, but I picture this as just like his baby. This was his passion project. This is his magnum opus. This is, you know, this was really where I feel like he got to shine because, like you said, a lot of this idea came before even Disneyland.
It goes back so far, um, and it also got so far that Mary Blair was brought in for color choices, and Buddy Baker, who had developed, he was one of the earliest developers alongside George Bruns of some of the most iconic soundtracks at the Disney parks. He wrote a lot of the music for Disney parks. So he actually developed the beginnings of a theme song that would have played throughout the ride, very similar again to a Pirates of the Caribbean where you have a theme song playing throughout the ride. It was included in the information about the attraction, I should say, was included and publicized in guidebooks for Magic Kingdom in 1971 and 1972. It was estimated for a 1976 opening. That's per the book I have from Walt Disney Imagineering, because I had seen somewhere else they said 1975, but in the book I saw it was estimated to be 1976. So you could debate which two. But there was also a detailed model of Thunder Mesa by Imagineer Mitsu Natsumi. It could be found in the pre-show area of the Walt Disney Story on Main Street, USA. So they were publicizing that this was going to be this major thing that was coming to Walt Disney World, which is
And
incredible.
yep. And then they said, nope. And see, I do have it being canceled in 1973, officially because of Pirates,
That makes sense.
because because the crowds were so disappointed that Pirates of the Caribbean was not at Disney World, like you said.
Yeah. So there are a lot of reasons that this project was canceled. And I kind of have them listed out in the list. That's just because that's how these things go. But I do think the 1973 timeline makes sense that would be when it was officially canceled, when they opened Pirates of the Caribbean. But that actually is one of the reasons is that when Disney fans arrived and they saw there was no Pirates of the Caribbean and said, "Where is Pirates of the Caribbean?" They quickly shifted and built this, second version. I've always said not as good as the Disneyland version, but we've got, I think,
Agreed.
the better queue probably in Walt Disney World, but the ride itself definitely better in Disneyland. So they opened that, which made kind of this Western River expedition, which was supposed to be a different kind of Pirates of the Caribbean, a little bit redundant to have two of them, especially in such close proximity, because this would have been where Tiana's Bayou Adventure and Thunder Mountain sit now in Frontierland. That's where the site of this was planned. So that's one reason. Another reason was Marc Davis's main cheerleader was Roy O. Disney, but then he passed away, and Dick Irvine was not, and Card Walker in particular, I should say, Card Walker was not quite as convinced that this was going to be a great attraction that was needed. Then we also have the energy crisis of the 1970s, which wreaked havoc on the travel industry. It caused a massive strain on financial resources, and it was estimated this was going to cost at the time, this is according to, again, my Imagineering book, $60 million. I did some rough calculations. That is in today's dollars around 500 million, which is
Oh,
basically the equivalent cost of, I think Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind was about that cost. So a massive expense to build something like this. And Marc Davis then retired in 1978, and it never came to be. It was just sort of tucked away on a shelf. We had some concept art, some models, some animatronics that eventually did get created and put into Epcot. And then everything just sort of the spirit of it got sort of passed along to Tony Baxter. But this would have been an
yeah.
amazing experience.
The Going into the Tony Baxter part of the story,
Yes.
I'm sure that you tell your listeners all the time, he started on Main Street scooping ice cream, worked his way up, was mentored by Claude Coates. And then he came in, and because Disney knew they needed another thrill ride, they were like, we only have Matterhorn at the time.
Yes.
Um, and this is all originating at Disneyland. So even though Thunder Mesa was supposed to be for Disney World, now we're needing a roller coaster for Disneyland. So Tony came in and he's like, I have this great idea. Mark had this Runaway mine train roller coaster. Maybe we do that as a standalone attraction.
Yeah, that would have been perfect, right? And I think the other part of this that I forgot to mention, for another reason that this was canceled, was there was this sentiment that it followed the same evolution as a lot of television shows. Is that for a while in the 50s there was this massive popularity of Western frontier lore, and
Yeah.
Davy Crockett, and just all these incredible frontier stories. And then it's exactly what we find in Toy Story. It's going from Woody being the most popular toy to Buzz Lightyear being the most popular toy, which echoes that. Yes, Kelly, you want to jump in here? I see you jumping in your seat.
Well, because we're not there in the story yet, but
Yeah.
that is very funny because space wins for a little bit in Disney World.
That's right. That's right.
That's literally part of this.
Yeah, exactly. They built the same, we're following this timeline of canceling it in 73 when Pirates was built. And then in 75 is when Space Mountain opens. And this was projected to be around that same time period that this attraction would have opened. But there was this feeling at the American space race and the first astronaut landing on the moon. And it sort of shifted to this desire to or the thought at least was that there was going to be more focus on space as the exciting frontier. And so that's why you have Space Mountain, and immediately 75 opens a Magic Kingdom, and then very quickly opens a second version at Disneyland in 77. But I think it is because not only Tony Baxter, I feel, wanted, there's so many things that Mark and Claude developed that didn't get put into the parks, that Tony felt this obligation to honor them in some way and bring it to the parks.
And by honoring, he meant bulldozing Marc Davis's original idea of the mine train through nature's wonderland.
Yes. But to be fair, this was losing popularity and it was getting incredibly expensive, increasingly expensive to maintain. So you have this attraction that's costing Disney a lot of money. I mean, imagine it would literally be like if you had, although I'm comparing two very different types of attractions, but Kilimanjaro Safaris is a very expensive attraction to maintain, not least of which is the animal care maintenance. So imagine if you had Kilimanjaro Safaris operating, but nobody was getting in line, at very, decreasing popularity year after year. I think Disney would consider doing something else with that space too, to maintain something so expensive and not that popular.
Oh, that'd be so sad. Yeah, I just
it
like
won't happen, but
I know.
Yeah,
I like the idea of this feud between Tony Baxter and Marc Davis, like the old, grumpy man coming. Hey, you're ruining everything. What is the internet? I mean, this is all in my head. This is not historically accurate, but in my head, it's like a battle.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly it. And Claude Coates and Marc Davis they were sort of the yin and yang of Imagineering. We see that with Pirates of the Caribbean and with Haunted Mansion, and technically Tony was being mentored by Claude Coates and was sort of his protege, so it makes a little bit sense. He worked on projects with Mark, but he was really more sort of brought into Imagineering and brought up within his early years of Imagineering under Claude Coates. So it makes a little bit of sense that they would have that sort of feud. But he did. I mean, Thunder Mountain is in some ways, although it was literally built where Marc Davis would have wanted to put Thunder Mesa. The fact that it is called Thunder Mountain and that it has these elements of humor that Marc Davis would have incorporated into the attraction, it does seem to honor him in that way.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
And we do have a Thunder Mesa, you end up getting it in, that's what I think it's called in Paris?
Yes.
Is the town of Thunder Mesa. So, you get a nod eventually.
Yeah, exactly. It all comes back to Mark and to Thunder Mesa and Western River Expedition. But for those who haven't seen it, go and look it up. And you look at the concept art you can find. It was published by Walt Disney Imagineering, so you could go and see it. It looks incredible. And then again, ride Living with the Land just to see those iconic animatronics. But this sort of a tangent, but I like to remind Disney fans, because I feel like when you don't step back through history, you feel like that some of uh, the I don't want to call them problems, but complaints that some Disney fans have about things today, it feels like it's just a problem of today. But it really has been a thing for a long time. And that includes Disney developing projects, getting so far that they actually published and said, this is coming in 5 or 6 years. We are designing it. We're going to break ground soon. And then all of a sudden say, nope, never mind. We're doing this instead. Like, this is not, and that wasn't the first time either. There was like,
Right.
what was it, Rock Candy Mountain at Disneyland. Like, that was another thing that was going to get built. That was really exciting. And that never happens. And it just, this has gone back since the beginning days of Disneyland, that they design things and they decide for one reason or another, financial reasons, another attraction comes along that makes it redundant, changes preferences, things just change over time. And they decide, you know what, that doesn't make sense to build this now.
Yep. You can just listen to Ross Geller's voice from Friends, just screaming, pivot, pivot, and they all move in a different direction, depending on what the crowd wants, or what the technology allows.
Yeah. Or financial constraints demand one or the other.
Or if Universal's opening Epic Universe and they feel the need to compete,
Yeah.
who knows?
There's so much at play, but this definitely happens. So I just wanted to say, like, as we're sort of looking back at history, these things happened, and this technically wasn't Walt's time, but even happened during Walt's time, and it's just part of the process, and it happens everywhere. It's not just a Disney thing. But I love that they come up with these great ideas, and at least the least of these outcomes is we at least get to look at the concept art and dream about what would have been. It would have been, it's pretty exciting stuff. So let's actually pivot in the story. Thank you, Ross, to the idea itself for Big Thunder Mountain Railroad and how that came about. So you sort of led into this by, saying that Disney decided that there needed to be, they had Matterhorn bobsleds. All of a sudden they have Space Mountain. Space Mountain is incredibly popular. So popular right away at Walt Disney World, and then again right away at Disneyland. And so the executives say, we need another thrill ride, and then here comes Tony Baxter. So how did Thunder Mountain end up getting developed?
Well, so we came in, they knew that they were going to kind of use that area. Like you said, it was not popular, so it was kind of a perfect fit, and they knew it was going to look like Bryce Canyon National Park in the 1880s. And luckily they already had the set. So they had the town of Rainbow Ridge, and this is Disneyland.
Yes.
And you had these animatronics. They actually, from the previous stuff, had already brought over different things from old gold mines in Nevada, Colorado, Minnesota, and Wyoming. All of the stuff all the artifacts that you see are real. None of them were manufactured, or most of them, I should say. I cannot speak on all of it.
Yeah, they had. I did find this in the Imagineering Field Guide, and you're right. They scoured auctions, flea markets, ghost towns, abandoned mines throughout the Old West, and they included. And these are, again, to Kelly's point, authentic. They actually did purchase and put into the queue a 1,200-pound cogwheel used to break down ore, a hand-powered drill press, and a 10-foot-tall 1880 stamp mill that became a part of the queue.
And I think that you can go to the City Hall and see all of the authentication for a lot of these artifacts.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I did not realize that. And the idea of Bryce Canyon, that comes up a lot. It's often, I'll share a fact about, like, Thunder Mountain was inspired by, for Walt Disney World, Monument Valley. And everyone's like, no, it's Bryce Canyon. I'm like, no, it's Monument Valley in Florida.
Yeah, they're different. They're different locations.
Yeah, exactly. Different locations. But what I think is really ingenious of Tony is, first of all, he technically develops, because it's planned originally for Florida, the Florida version first. The Disneyland version opens first. But his Thunder Mountain version is based on Monument Valley. And he realizes that the fit for the look of the of Monument Valley, which is really a little bit more like grand and majestic. It didn't fit well with Disneyland, which had a much more charming vibe and was, a couple 100 feet away from Pinocchio's Daring Journey and Fantasyland, which is very charming fit. So if you imagine like rounding the turn from Sleeping Beauty Castle towards Frontierland, and all of a sudden seeing these majestic large buttes, doesn't fit as well as the like whimsical hoodoos of Bryce Canyon. So he sort of landed
Yeah.
on that as being a better fit for the geography of that attraction, or the landscape.
Yeah. And in terms of the fit, there is nothing more special now that we have, Galaxy's Edge right behind it. They
Yeah,
fit it, it just they belong together. It I love the transition at Disneyland.
I do too.
I think it's so good.
Yeah, they really tried to shoehorn it into Hollywood Studios, and I love having it at Hollywood Studios. Do not get me wrong, but the transition at Hollywood Studios is nothing compared to the three entrances at Disneyland, and in particular, the ones from Big Thunder. The one from Critter Country is still, I love that too, because it goes into
Oh,
the remote side of Galaxy's Edge, so it fits.
no,
But
they both feel very right. Yeah, the only thing I can think of for the Hollywood Studios, I know we're going on a tangent, is
it's related.
is that yeah, exactly. Is that there's aliens here in Toy Story and
I say the
aliens are
same
in
thing.
Star Wars. Yeah, I'm like, what?
You go from the aliens rolling saucer side directly over near the milk stand in Galaxy's Edge. It's a I guess technically more like where uh Savi's workshop is, but it is a very in like they tried so hard. Like I give Imagineers a lot of credit
Oh
for
yeah.
developing the transitions. It's not easy to do that, but it was kind of built for Disneyland when you think about that going, especially you go under the railroad. Oh, what a signal for like new Disneyland, oh, old Disneyland to new Disneyland. Just that under the railroad, that how perfectly the rock work transitions and the lanterns. It's so seamless. It's amazing. I love the transition at Disneyland.
Me too. It's and it does. It's seeing that backside of Big Thunder and kind of seeing all of the old tunnels from the previous attraction that kind of just feel like it adds to the abandoned
Hmm.
area feel.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think it's really cool, and it has the old feel, but then really in terms of the development, it was a new type of steel roller coaster in a way. Um, and the first time that they worked with LIM. So the new and the old.
The new and the old, exactly. And this attraction, I we're gonna maybe get into the story a little bit, and then maybe talk about the Imagineering behind it. And I don't want to. This is going to be such a bad pun. I don't want to steal your thunder, but the
Hey,
on this one, but I thought that um the storyline that is told in the it's a book called The Disney Mountains: Imagineering at its Peak. Also a very Disney
nice.
corny joke that's included in an Imagineering book. But they have an actual like a great rundown of uh, the storyline. So here's a quote from the book. Loosely inspired by the real life legend of the Superstition Mountain. Oh, this is not the real life. This is not the quote, actually. I'm going to get to that in a second. But it is loosely inspired by the real life legend of Superstition Mountain east of Phoenix, Arizona, and the Lost Dutchman mine, which is home to an untold fortune of gold. Which in that real legends, the Apaches thought the mine is protected by an ancient quote thunder god, who brings doom to any who attempt to pillage it. So here's the what the Imagineers say about the Disney version. In the Disney version, gold was discovered in Big Thunder Country in the 1850s, shortly after excuse me, shortly after the gold rush began near John A. Sutter's mill in California, leading to the formation of the Big BTM Mining Company. But the locals believed Big Thunder Mountain and the land around it to be sacred, and a protective supernatural force dwelt deep within the mountain to protect it from anyone who might deface it in pursuit of a profit. At first, the mining operation went along without incident, but as the miners began using explosives to blast deeper and deeper into the unforgiving rock and laying tracks for the mine train they'd used to retrieve its golden bounty, the mountain's ancient fury was unleashed. Strange noises emanated from a newly opened mine shaft. The spirits of long dead miners could be heard tapping on the boarded walls of abandoned tunnels. Cave-ins became common occurrences, and then the narrow gauge engines began rolling out of the station with no human hands at the controls. Entire trains, most times packed with unsuspecting passengers, would race driverless at breakneck speed along the spiraling steel and wooden track. The miners began to concede that perhaps the locals were right all along. Maybe the mountain and their mine was cursed. They abandoned their posts. The BTM mining company went bust, and soon Big Thunder became just another ghost town dotting the Old West. And this story is what differentiated Thunder Mountain from Matterhorn Bobsleds and Space Mountain, which now they've kind of incorporated a little bit more of a storyline. But back in the day, even now, it's not as rich and layered of a story. And it's considered to be the bridge between the first generation mountains of Imagineering and every mountain that's been developed since. You think about Expedition Everest, for instance, and that rich storyline.
So good.
Yeah. So I like that. I like to read the Imagineers' actual words about it. And it's the same storyline at each of the parks, but each has a different natural disaster that happens.
Yes.
So you have the flood in Florida, and then I believe it's the earthquake in California, or is it? I'm trying to remember now. I didn't actually. I thought I wrote it down.
So in Disneyland and Disneyland Paris, it's an earthquake. In Tokyo, it's a tsunami, and at Walt Disney World, it is a flash flood that kind of brings the towns to a mess. I literally could do an hour episode telling you the lore of all of this because they go into such great detail.
Well, let's go through some of it.
Yeah. So the idea, and of course, I'm very happy that this ties into a haunted mansion of some sort, but the idea is that in 1840, Henry Ravenscroft, depending on which book you read. I don't know why.
For the Disneyland Paris version, at least according to the Imagineering book, it is, I'm pretty sure Ravenswood. Going back to look. Yeah.
It forms Big Thunder Mining Company. But then, like we said, there was a natural disaster to make this, to make it go quick. There was a natural disaster that ends up killing Ravenwood. And then you have their beautiful mansion that was overlooking their mountain that might be kind of haunted now. So then you have Phantom Manor, which is dark and awesome. And then people are greedy, right? So Barnabas T. Bullion becomes the president and takes over BTM Company. And he expands it to Tumbleweed, which is Florida, and Rainbow Ridge, which is California. And then they meet, and that's from 1860 to 1880. Then in 1880, Jason Chandler, who some of the characters from I'm having to reread some of my notes, would discover Bay, but still somehow they make into these stories, gives him the big drill for mining. They go too far. And my favorite part is, so then everything's abandoned. We see, like you said, the ghosts come out. Scary, scary. Then all of a sudden, this unleashes these trains that have a mind of their own and just start wildly going around. And now, because almost every attraction, I swear, you end up being a tourist. Now we are tourists visiting this old abandoned mine company and riding the haunted trains.
Yeah. And I didn't get the chance to ask Tony Baxter when I did had the amazing honor of interviewing Tony Baxter on the show. I asked him a lot about Indiana Jones Adventure because I wanted to dive deep into that. And I knew there was a lot of lore out there about Thunder Mountain. But one of the things I did talk to him about was giving vehicle's personality. It's not just a means of transportation, but it actually is like if you and I talked about when you ride Indiana Jones Adventure and you encounter the snake, you feel the vehicle react emotionally to the snake being there. And by having the mine trains be spooked, you get the same sense that you feel their fear. Like you feel the way that, of course, that the vehicles don't move beyond the track, but the way the track is designed, just those subtle movements, those quick dips, and then all of a sudden, like, nope, we're gonna go left, or we're gonna, at Walt Disney World, this doesn't exist at the Disneyland version, but they are mirror image tracks, except when you get to just past the second lift. I'm sorry, just before the second lift. It's towards the end of the first run. The Walt Disney World version going through the flash flood town does this weird shimmy like down through the flood, and the Disneyland version does this turn and dip into a dark cave. So those are a little bit mirror image,
Oh
but
yeah.
you feel the especially in the Walt Disney World version, you kind of feel the fear of the train at that part as it's kind of shimmying in this weird atypical track design. You get this personality out of the vehicle that you don't get with a traditional roller coaster when you go ride just a roller coaster. And that's what makes this so different, is it's that personality and it's infused into the story.
And I think that even if you didn't, let's say you don't know any of this, you're learning this for the first time, but you still enjoy the attraction. I think that the feeling that there is more happening than just a roller coaster is evident. Like you don't have to know the backstory,
Yeah.
but it's more powerful when you do, especially because you're like, wait, Big Thunder's haunted? I just thought it was Wildest Ride in the Wilderness,
Yeah. No, it's so, and then to tie it to your point of the Disneyland Paris version, to actually infuse the storyline into Phantom Manor, their version of Haunted Mansion, have them connected by the same person, and literally have Phantom Manor overlooking Thunder Mountain, and then you're riding Thunder Mountain, you could see Phantom Manor ominously on the other side. It's so incredible that they just can blend these two attractions together through that mythology.
It's it's so cool. I'm going, if you give me 1 second, I can find it.
Yes.
But there also used to be something you would see off in the distance at Disneyland that was very interesting. Let's see.
While you're looking, by the way, Kelly, I just have to say that the way that you told the story, I felt like I was sitting in the most interesting history class I've ever attended. You're like in 1860. And I was thinking, like, I would love to sit in on this class. Let's hear about the history of Big Thunder Mountain.
They have, you can like learn like Cleon or what, in school. Why can't we learn
Yeah.
Disney history in college?
Yeah, exactly. Why not?
um, I wonder if there's a way to look up. Maybe it's down here. Oh, yeah, it is. Okay. And also, just so you know, I don't know if you know this, but Big Thunder ties into Tiki Room too.
Okay, this I don't know. So
This isn't even what I
how
was going to tell you, but now that we're here,
I had no idea. Is this just in one park or in all the parks?
no, it actually ties Magic Kingdom to Disneyland via
Okay.
Tiki Room.
Okay. I'm
Okay.
I'm very curious about this now.
So, because and like you said, this is kind of like the second class of Imagineering and kind of tying all these attractions together. So the idea is that when all of the Tiki Room, the girl cockatoos
Yes.
singing "Let's All Sing Like the Birdies Sing." So one of they talk about, Jose says, "Where's Rosita?" And so when you're in the Magic Kingdom queue, there's a bunch of bird cages that are traditionally meant for canaries. And then you're going to see, and then it says in other birds to serve as like early warnings for the gas leak.
Yeah.
Um,
I was wondering
one
if it
of,
had to do with that phrase, the
yes.
canary and the yeah.
And then one of the cages is titled Rosita, suggesting that she received the dubious honor of working at the railroad. But that might not be the full story. Over at the Tropical Hideaway at Disneyland, we now have Rosita who sits there, and is singing and performing her solo career. And so it is to say that then she was brought over there, escaped, and then now sings at the Tropical Hideaway.
That's, you see, this is why Disney rocks. It's just
Yeah.
that level of detail that, and let's be honest, if you're going to Disneyland for the first time or once in a while, that story's not going to matter to you too much. It doesn't, and it shouldn't matter to you too much. But if it's those little things that keep you coming back and realize how intricate and layered everything is in Disney. We haven't even
Right.
talked about the Society of Explorers and Adventurers, and this is not even. I'll be honest. That as much as I love the lore and mythology of Disney Sea, I am more a student than a teacher of this storyline.
It's I when I had my podcast, we did a whole episode. I'm thinking, oh yeah, we're gonna do one on what's the bar called? The
Trader Sam's.
Yeah, thank you. Oh yeah,
Like you just said the bar, and there's like 1,000 of them, and I actually was able to pick the right one. What's the name of that bar? Trader Sam's. That's the one every Disney fan thinks of. Yeah.
yeah. I was gonna say it's just the iconic, And I'm like, oh, this will probably not be that long. I started, and I'm like, oh my god, what have I gotten myself into? Um, why I can't? Oh, there you go. There used to be. This is what I was trying to find. That used to be in the
Yes.
distance at Disneyland. There used to be a burning cabin that would be seen across the rivers of America, and the idea was that this cabin had been burning for 31 years to make firewood. It was like because so that when you're up, on the attraction, you still believe you're in the same world.
Yeah.
But eventually, I think in 2002, they had to extinguish the fire forever because of safety.
Yeah.
But
That's so interesting.
isn't it just like so that even when you're looking out, it still feels like you're in the same world?
That's incredible. Um, that's the Disney difference, as we say. Uh, the Do you have any other fun facts about Barnabas T. Bullion? I mean, the big one is the fact that he basically is a nod to Tony Baxter, has a striking resemblance to Tony Baxter in the way that the um, Harrison Hightower the third has a striking resemblance to Joe Rody, and I think which is the character who looks like Joe Lanzisero? Is it Lanzisero? Is it Albert? I can't remember.
Oh,
Every
I'll,
sea lover right now is shouting at me because
yeah,
this is why I haven't done
the
a sea
fall. It's the
episode.
falls. The
Albert Falls.
Yeah. Um, yes. You know what? My facts are just that he's a power hungry East Coaster. He was,
What
he
are you
was,
saying about East Coasters exactly?
well, I'm an East Coaster. It's
I
okay.
know.
Um, and that's why we had to bring it all over. We're switching it up and bringing it to Florida, even though we're not in Florida, Um, yeah, please, if you have fun facts about the characters, I'd love to hear them.
I don't. Well, we're gonna have to. I actually know some friends who are experts in the Society of Explorers and Adventurers. My experience and my knowledge does not go as deep as that. As much as I am a fan of the Disney parks and know a lot about Imagineering, for some reason I just haven't tapped enough into the Society of Explorers and Adventurers. But so I don't have too much beyond what you've already shared about Barnabas T. Bullion. You can find him in the queue in Magic Kingdom, and in Disneyland, he is in the town. You can kind of see his portrait in behind one of the saloon doors, which is
Oh,
kind of cool that he's there.
yeah, and there's certain things. Again, I have to find it exactly where like you can only see certain characters at night in the windows.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And that's another reason to ride it at night. But yeah, he does have a really ominous look in after dark compared to during the day. It's a very different experience. The other thing I wanted to mention was in the Disneyland version, you mentioned that Rainbow Ridge, which was from the Mine Train through Nature's Wonderland, made its way. They sort of had to rebuild it, but this similar town was built in a slightly different spot for Thunder Mountain and became Rainbow Ridge for Thunder Mountain. But the other thing that was brought from Mine Train through Adventure's Wonderland Mine Train through Adventureland, Mine Train through Nature's Wonderland is the dinosaur bones that make up the sort of the dinosaur fossils at the last
That's the
descent
best part.
through up to Rainbow Ridge. So I thought that was kind of cool that they did bring those two things over to the attraction as a nod to that original experience, which was great. The couple things we didn't talk about in terms of timing. So we mentioned that it opens. It soft opens September 2nd, 1979 at Disneyland, with the grand opening being September 15th, and it opened on my birthday, actually, September 23rd, 1980 in Magic Kingdom. So it was very quick. That was being developed. Like, they opened a year apart, and very close to the timeline that Space Mountain was built. So within a period of 5 years, you have both Space Mountains and both Thunder Mountains open up at the same time, which
That's
is
a
just,
lot.
yeah, it's a lot of thrill rides. And this is a great expansion period for Disney, which is, and still these attractions we know and love today. The other thing I'll share is we talked a little bit about geeking out about some of the facts, right? About these attractions. So the Disneyland version and the Magic Kingdom version, as I said, they have technically mirror image tracks in a lot of cases, except where they detract in that sort of the first, after the first lift, before the second lift, or coming into the second lift. Disneyland's version has 2,671 feet of track. Magic Kingdoms has 2,780 feet of track, so it has another 100, roughly 110, technically
It's
109.
25% larger. Is
Yeah, it's and that's the acreage. I think the
Yeah.
acreage is 25%
like the scale.
larger.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Disneyland's, again, everything, because it has to fit with that small, charming feeling to it. Is why they built Space Mountain basically 15 feet into the ground to make sure it didn't tower over Sleeping Beauty Castle. The only thing that does is Matterhorn, but otherwise everything else is kind of built at a lower point to keep it in scale with Sleeping Beauty Castle. So Disneyland's version, the mountain itself goes up to 104 feet, whereas Magic Kingdom goes up to 197 feet. And it became technically at the time the tallest quote unquote mountain in the state of Florida. Now that's Expedition Everest.
It is weirdly flat in Florida. Um,
It's
um,
swamp.
and the other fun facts that I know everyone is dying to hear is that there is 6,500 feet of steel beams, rods, and mesh. And there is 4,675 tons of cement and sand. And there was 4,000 gallons of paint used initially to make the rocks look realistic.
And this is all going to be on the pop quiz you can find at imaginationsky.com. If you pass the class, and you are considered a Thunder Mountain expert. So that's, I mean, these are the types of facts I include in WDW magazine articles too. They're just, you might not think it's the most interesting. It's not. It doesn't make for the best small talk and a cue for the attraction. Do you know how many feet are on track are there on this attraction? But it's just it's cool information to know.
This is my favorite. Recently, I went to Disney World, and the nicest cast member ever, her name is Montana. I'm giving a shout out because it meant so much. She gave us like a couple-hour tour around Dinoland.
That's awesome.
And just even the little stuff of which I know that carries over into all of the other parks is how they age the roads, how they age the mountains. It was awesome. So all that paint, those facts are important.
They are. You never know when it's going to come up in conversation. And it definitely applies if you want to be an Imagineer, which I know some of you listening are. This is just all good information to know. So a few little things. We hinted a little bit about the Disneyland Paris version. You talked about the Henry Ravenswood storyline, and they had also shared a little bit more about that in the Disney Mountains Imagineering book. I think I already mentioned this already, but what's interesting is, so this opened April 12th, 1992. It was the first Thunder Mountain, and technically now the only Thunder Mountain, to be an opening day attraction at a Disneyland or Magic Kingdom park, which, as I said, allowed Tony and the team to take entirely different approach. So A couple of reasons why it is different is first of all, they took a more postmodern, excuse me, a more postmodern approach to the American frontier, whereas the mythology of the Old West, or because the mythology of the Old West is perceived differently by Europeans than it is by Americans, because the Europeans have a little bit more of a detachment from the Old West. And for us in America, it's traditionally a little bit more a part of our history. And so there's more of an attachment and a different sentiment around the Old West. And also in Europe, while Europeans know of Tom Sawyer and Mark Twain, they also don't have that same um, history, and they're not as deeply a part of the culture as they are in American history. So rather than make a Tom Sawyer Island, they decided to instead build an adventure isle, which was going to fill that need in the park for that place to wander and play and explore.
It's
And they
amazing.
decided to make Thunder Mountain be the main star of Frontierland, which would essentially comprise one big boomtown, which, as we said, was going to be, it is called Thunder Mesa. And the Imagineering says the name is, of course, no coincidence. And that grew up around a gold mine deep within Big Thunder Mountain. We do have the proprietor, as you mentioned, is Henry Ravenswood. He's the ruthless gold baron behind Thunder Mesa's rapid growth. He also was the owner of the old house overlooking the rivers of the far west, not the rivers of America. That a house that was reputed to be haunted in the years after his death. That's Phantom Manor. And it's because his daughter Melanie was the infamous nameless bride whose heart was forever broken when Ravenswood murdered her one true love because the young man planned to whisk her far away from Thunder Mesa. Talk about a dark storyline. So it has Thunder Mountain has a real central role and is the central figure within Disneyland Paris's Frontierland.
And it's the only one that goes um,
Yes.
underneath the
Rivers of the Far
water.
West. Yeah.
Yes. Which is it's just cool. Yeah, I mean, good job, Imagineers. It's amazing.
Yeah, that one little fact is your I think they talk about it as in the Imagineering story or maybe behind the attraction. I think is when they mentioned it. But you board you're in the queue on the Frontierland side and you're looking out at Thunder Mountain on the island and you're loading onto the train. You're like, how I don't see a bridge. Like how do we get over there? And you go through that first tunnel and at Magic Kingdom and Disneyland, we'll say it's cute, right? You make a quick little turn, you see some bats up ahead, you go through this fun little bat cave and then up a lift. But at Disneyland Paris, you just sort of like go down this curve into this tunnel and you keep picking up speed and picking up speed in pitch blackness. And all of a sudden you come up and then there's the bat cave and then you proceed up the main lift. Just a very different vibe.
It's I would say almost every roller coaster in Paris is bigger, faster, more intense,
Yeah.
so it's very fitting that, of course, Big Thunder, which is, in my opinion, usually the family friendly roller coaster, it's a good introduction to roller coasters, maybe before a Space Mountain. Even though it's still bigger in Paris, still it's the safer one than their Space Mountain.
Yeah.
I say there like
The Disneyland Paris of Space Mountain, which is the most intense version of Space Mountain.
it's awesome.
More intense than Tron. It's absolutely it's too much for me. I'll tell you that. But
Oh,
it's a very intense roller coaster. It's sort of like a more condensed version of, and I mean condensed physically, version of Rock and Roller Coaster meets the Space Mountain
yeah,
theme. So
yeah. I think that's
it's incredible.
exactly what I said when I was there. Like,
That's kind of what it is. It's the
yeah,
same exact. I believe both were developed by Vekoma. I have to go back and look, but
I do think you're accurate
no, they
because
have the same type of roller coaster. And Vekoma builds, at least back in that era, their coasters were a little rougher. They're not quite as smooth as some of their competitor roller
I
coaster
think
manufacturers.
the Disneyland Big Thunder was the last time they worked with Aerodynamics, and then instead started working with Tacoma much more, if I recall correctly. I could be
Yeah.
wrong.
They've worked with Vekoma. They've worked with Intamin. I think that was California Scream. It was Intamin, and I'm trying to remember who they worked on with Cosmic Rewind, but It does. We're
Oh
really
yeah,
getting deep
and
into
I know it
who
crushes
manufactures the
coaster.
roller coasters. Yeah. Uh, now I'm showing off my roller coaster tycoon fandom more than my Disney fandom. Yeah.
Oh,
What Disney fan doesn't like roller
roller
coaster tycoon
coaster
or didn't
tycoon.
play it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question.
It's like,
That's one
which
of
version was your
the
favorite? How long
yeah,
did you play it?
it's one of the greatest games of all time.
It is. And I think we're really going off on a tangent here. I believe that the original roller coaster tycoon was developed by one person, Chris
Yes,
Sawyer. Yeah.
yeah. Um, my brother, who his dream would be to be an Imagineer, he now is still an engineer, but building factories, which is its own. Making an Amazon those boxes are going on roller coaster.
Yeah.
Um, but if he I think he knows every fact about Roller Coaster Tycoon. Just could name them off immediately. Uh, but back to this real roller coaster.
Yes, back to the real roller coaster. Thanks for that commercial break.
Yeah.
It really took us on a tangent there. But one of the things that you brought up, Kelly, that I was not necessarily going to bring up, but because you mentioned it, I thought, all right, we got to talk about it. Is apparently Thunder Mountain is also an attraction that you can go to. You know, allegedly help facilitate. I'm gonna read this from the American Osteopathic Association. So I am not reading this off of Wikipedia. This is an actual medical publication from 2016. Quote, riding a moderate intensity roller coaster can facilitate passage of small kidney stones, according to a report published today in the Journal of the American Osteopathic Association that attempts to corroborate patients' accounts of spontaneously passing kidney stones after riding a specific Disney World roller coaster. And that specific Disney World roller coaster is Thunder Mountain. So it's not that the Imagineers decided to build a natural remedy for passing small kidney stones, but they
It just
somehow by
happened.
accident did it. And not to say, please, this is not medical advice. If you have kidney stones, please go see a doctor. Do not head to Disneyland and ride Thunder Mountain. But this is just anecdotal evidence, and so they had researchers who had permission from the park. They had this kidney model built and concealed in a backpack during 20 rides on Big Thunder Mountain Railroad at
Yes.
Walt Disney World in Orlando. They analyzed 60 ride outcomes to determine how the variables of kidney stone volume, location in the kidney, and model position in the front versus rear of the roller coaster impacted kidney stone passage. And independent of kidney stone volume and location, findings showed sitting in the back of the roller coaster resulted in a passage rate of 63.89%, which is
Crazy.
incredible.
And
So maybe your
where
doctor will prescribe that if that's the case. But
this study also found that Space Mountain and Rock and Roller Coaster, they failed and did not cause the stones to pass. And I don't know if you said this in the beginning of from the actual paper, but that this came all because a patient of where did it go? A patient of Dr. Wartinger had 3 different occasions where he passed kidney stones on Big Thunder. And I want to know why someone had 3 separate occasions where they had kidney stones, but
and went to Disney.
I went to Disney because in the amount of pain that you're in when you have kidney
Yeah.
stones, I don't think I'd be able to walk around Disney. So
It's this is a tangent, and again, this is not medical advice. Please, if you have kidney stones, go see a doctor. Do not go to Disney. But it's just such an amazing, like, this is not just some legends. This is an
No, it's
actual
true.
medical publication that validated that patient's outcome, and it's obviously for a very specific scenario, because there's a lot of scenarios with kidney stones, but Disney could be a magical place if, and this is just one example of that. So
Yes.
it's such an interesting part of the attraction's history.
Yeah, it's hard not to talk about. So that if you're riding with your family or friends and you just want to give one fun fact while in Disney World, this is a great fun fact.
Anybody got kidney stones? This you might not after riding this. before we've one, I think, major topic left, I'll call it, and then we'll jump into some final fun quick questions. But we haven't talked too much, and I think we've layered them into the conversation a bit, but Imagineering details, Easter eggs. We've talked about a few of them. We talked about Rosita. We talked about Barnabas T. Bullion. We talked about the historic Easter eggs like Rainbow Ridge and the dinosaur fossils. Are there any other Imagineering details or Easter eggs or just fun facts, things that you like to point out from the attraction?
Um, I think that my favorite thing is to bring up Lillian Disney's father and the honoring him throughout the attraction. Do you know this fact?
I actually don't know this one.
Really?
Yeah. I told you,
I
I'm not. Sometimes when you get really, really, really deep into an attraction, I don't know everything. There's just, and the more I learn, the more I realize, the less I know.
See, I just assume you know everything. It's
I don't. People assume that about me, and then I'll say, like, how long is Big Thunder Mountain Railroad's track? And I'll go, I don't know. Look at my notes. How long is it? It's half a mile. I don't know. It's a typical length for a roller coaster.
Here. So there's a couple different ways that they honor him. So there's official certification of the property with a signed notice saying that the papers can be found in City Hall and Main Street. The U.S. Marshal signing the multiple notices is Willard P. Bounds, which is referring to Lillian Disney's father. And in the window of the marshal's office in the town used to read Willard P. Bounds. And on the Nez Perce Indian Reservation in Idaho, now there is a notice of the attraction at the entrance instead of being on the window.
Very interesting. I didn't. I mean, if I had really looked at the name and saw Bounds, it might have hit me. But I never realized that before. Is it just at Disneyland?
Yeah, because he really
That might
was
be
a
why.
U.S. Yeah, because he was really a U.S. Marshal in Idaho. So then, yeah, I think that's just in Disneyland.
Yeah. Another thing I was going to point out, and this is also specific to Disneyland, Walt Disney World's, thinking about Easter eggs and nods, there are some, but there's not quite as much with Walt Disney World's as there is with Disneyland's. But another thing I love is that a lot of people who walk past, and I do love the fact that you can walk around Thunder Mountain at Disneyland more than Magic Kingdom. You can walk up to it, but
Yeah.
Disneyland's you can walk around it on all, 3 out of 4 sides. I love the fact that if you look, if you're passing by Thunder Mountain walking towards Fantasyland, on your left is this tunnel to nowhere.
Mhm.
And that was also a leave behind from Mine Train Through Nature's Wonderland. Used to be a tunnel.
I love it. I don't know why. It's like I'll end up hanging out back there. And there's also some fish. There's some piranhas jumping. And there was one time that my family was here and my brother was like, those are real. I was like, they're absolutely not real. And we argued about this for probably an hour and then came back in the daylight. And I was like, ha, see. A really fun fact, in my opinion, is that Disneyland's version was used in the mine chase sequence in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Was it really?
Yup.
You are blowing my mind, Kelly.
The trains. Yeah.
Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I need to go back and rewatch. I've seen the movie. I just need to go back and rewatch it and try to actually like pick it out because I never paid attention to that.
Me too. And the one in Disneyland also had a complete refurb.
Yes, and you could tell when you ride it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. In 2014, which I lived here and I was so frustrated that it was closed for so long, but outcome, way smoother track.
And this is why I'm really excited. I mean, every Disney fan is like, no, Thunder Mountain's going to be closed for a year or more. But I'm thinking, yes, but it's the sacrifice for a better attraction. And that is how we honor attractions. I say it time and again, is give them refurbishments. Otherwise,
Yes.
they lay in disrepair.
I miss Haunted Mansion so much, and I'm glad that part of version is back. But yes, I know that because they're refurbing it and they're adding, the store, it's giving it more life and longevity.
Yes, exactly. Let's keep these. That's how you keep these classics alive. Is you got to keep them updated with the times. That's the only way to keep them relevance,
Yup.
and ensure, don't wait for them to fall into disrepair. Just actively keep it constantly pivoting, Ross Geller, to the future, even if it's a distraction about the past. Yeah, I
There's
just want to
also,
say, no, go
oh,
ahead,
go
go ahead.
ahead. There's
You first.
also, I'm not sure where this is. It's just a fun fact that I have. Oh, I guess there's a couple. One, if you want to see the original model, it's at the Disneyland Hotel in the Frontier Tower lobby. And a fun fact that I don't know where this is, but apparently you can see a miner in his pajamas relaxing in a bathtub while you're riding the mine train.
That's in Florida.
That's in Florida. Okay, that's
Yeah.
probably why I was like, I don't know where that is.
I'm gonna be honest. When you're riding the attraction, that's the shimmy part as you're going through the flash flood town of
Gotcha.
Tumbleweed. So it's really who's looking to find that. It's kind of like trying to find the skeleton with the Mickey Mouse ears on Indiana Jones Adventure. It's like
Gotcha.
in order to do that, I had to like grab onto the vehicle and pivot and turn left, and just it's not one of those Easter eggs that or characters you find by chance. It's intentional.
You have to be
You,
looking. Okay.
you have to be looking, but where you can see it really well is riding the Walt Disney World Railroad as you pass by Thunder Mountain, because you pass by Tumbleweed on that side.
There you go.
So,
Which is it still closed?
the Walt Disney World Railroad is open
Okay.
as of now. As when you're listening to this, it might be closed, but it's as of now, it's open.
I never know when they're open and closed. It's one of my favorites to do.
They
so.
will, I am sure, be closing at some point for another extended refurbishment for the Beyond Big Thunder project and the transformation of Frontierlands. And so I'm sure in the near future, it'll go through, just like with Tron, a multi-year refurbishment and closure as they get that safely ready for guests.
Right.
The other thing I was going to say is that that sort of that same section that we're talking about with Disneyland, I have this as one of my core memories of being in Disneyland on Maggie's first trip, holding her as Joanna rode Thunder Mountain. That's kind of my thing. I stay back with Maggie, who's not tall enough to ride, and Joanna rides Thunder Mountain. But getting the chance to actually like stand there, watch her, stand there with her, holding her, and in that part of the pathway where you can watch the train come right at you and then turn and pivot turn around into the cave and then go around or the mine shaft and go back out the other side. Maggie was a year and a half, so she was aware but not able to understand that it follows the track. So her eyes would like widen as the train's getting closer and closer, and it would turn away and she would watch it, and then she would just smile. And it was the repeat of that every single time we watched it going by. And I thought I could stay here all day and do this. This is the best.
Those are the memories that you keep. Becomes
Exactly.
our core memories. Thanks, Joy.
The simple things.
Yeah.
All right. I have two more rapid fire questions and maybe one bonus question, and that's going to be it. So, this is my first sort of rapid fire question. Where does Thunder Mountain rank on your list of Disney mountains? And I know this is not fair to ask because there's different versions of them, so I'm just going to focus on the U.S. Where does it rank at Disneyland? Where does it rank at Walt Disney World?
And are we including, because now there's technically more mountains, do we include the mine train as Seven Dwarfs, or are we not including Seven Dwarfs?
It doesn't, you know what? Since it doesn't have mountain in the name, let's not include it, even though it technically is a mountain. So let's just to make it simpler, let's not include it.
I would say and this is not the answer I expected to say. So I'm thinking out loud here. I think it's number one at Disneyland, and not because of the thrill. I like the thrill of space, but I think every time there's something magical when I ride it at night, and the park is empty, and Big Thunder's always just like I feel like a kid again. I'm gonna say Disney World. It would come second, and that's because it's very far away. It's
It's back in the corner.
I like that version a lot. It's bigger. It's a little fast. It's a little more exciting. But yeah, I don't know. It never is a priority while I'm there.
Here's the interesting thing. I have the opposite answer. So it's actually number one for me at Magic Kingdom and number two for me at Disneyland. It is my favorite at Magic Kingdom. I do not think it is as good, so maybe that says something, as the one at Disneyland. I think the one at Disneyland is better. We'll see post refurbishment if I have the same thoughts or not. Magic Kingdoms might be bigger and grander and have more space, but the Disneyland charm and storyline, I think, just for me, it's more magical and more. It's just overall a really packed story.
Yeah.
Has a lot of history to it. So I think the Disneyland one is better, but it's still my number one at Magic Kingdom. But yeah, at Disneyland, it's actually Space Mountain for me is my number one there.
It is I know depending on how people feel, it's not the original Space Mountain, but the music makes it. It's so
Yes.
fun.
The updated special effects. Another case for we need attractions to be updated. Look at the Disneyland Space Mountain compared to the Magic Kingdom Space Mountain. Not no offense to the Magic Kingdoms, but any Disneyland fan, people say that the Magic Kingdom version is more fun because it's got more sudden dips and it doesn't just continue to turn left, which the Space Mountain version has a lot of left turn. Is it left turns or is it right turn? Sorry, there's a lot of right turns on Space Mountain in Disneyland. It seems like it's constantly turning right,
Yeah.
right, with a few lefts. Especially at the end, it's just a
It's
constant,
just you're just like waiting to get
constant
out.
right
Yeah.
turns.
Yeah.
So it's maybe a little less surprising, but combining the special effects, the music, and the smoothness of the updated track is makes Disneyland's a top one for me.
Yeah.
So,
Neither
right.
of us said splash. Interesting.
Well, because now it's Tiana's Bayou Adventure, and do we consider that a mountain? I mean, it's technically not a mountain anymore. So, do we consider part of the Magic Kingdom mountain range anymore?
I think it's structure you have to, but yeah, you know what? I didn't even think about it that they changed it from being a mountain to just an
Kind of like a
adventure.
salt mine now. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just a Bayou Adventure. I don't know. I don't know if I consider it a mountain anymore.
Yeah, that's
Um,
fair.
my second question is we haven't talked about the goat trick. Are you a goat trick fan, believer?
I do it. I do it every time. I don't really. I think. Does it do anything? I guess technically because you're looking away.
It's like a what do you call it? An optical illusion.
Yeah, it's fun. I just really like looking at the goat because he's cute. Not really for the trick.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun, but I get it. I've done it, and it to me it's the idea of not looking forward. I think that really makes
Yeah.
it seem faster. Not so much that it has nothing to do with the goat. It's just you're looking away from forward.
Yeah,
That
the
makes
goat
it
does
go
not
a
have
lot
magical
faster.
powers, making
Right.
you go faster.
Right. But it's still obviously a very fun character. And one example between that and the possums, like that's a very Mark
Yeah.
Davis edition. So absolutely a tribute to him. So I wanted to just ask about that.
Yeah.
Is there anything we haven't talked about? That was my last question about Thunder Mountain that we're missing. That I feel like we've gone through the history. We've been chatting for almost an hour and a half now. Anything we missed?
No, I think we've covered it all. I mean, technically you can go into the, like I said, the extreme details of the, history of the characters and, the how on the very stormy night when the flash flood came, you can go into
You can really go deep into the storyline.
yes, but I think getting the gist of it, I think we did it.
I think so too. Well, this is awesome. So, Kelly, I want to make sure people know where to go if they want to follow you because you have an awesome Instagram account at the very least. And,
Thank you.
I know you've been on the show before. We did last year the 2-part episode about where to find Walt Disney at Disneyland, his inspiration, his fingerprints, so to speak, at the park. But for those who didn't listen to it or just listening to the show now, where can people go to find you?
You can find me, like he said, on Instagram at Washington Kelly, how you'd write your name on a standardized test. And on TikTok, you can find me at It's Kelly Washington. I am finally very excited. I'm building my YouTube and getting to nerd out a little bit more there. So that's at It's Kelly Washington. Please go follow me there.
Yeah, I'll make sure everyone knows where to go. I'll include links and all that. But Kelly, thanks so much again for joining me. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Imagination Central. If you haven't done so already, be sure to create a free Imagination Skyway account over at patreon.com/Imagination Skyway. I'm continuing to turn this into your one-stop shop for Imagination Skyway content, podcast episodes, and more, so be sure to create a free account there or consider signing up for one of our paid subscription options for even more surprises. If you already have an account and are listening on the Patreon app already, thank you, and be sure to leave your thoughts about today's discussion directly on the episode. Remember, you can also engage with the show on social media by searching for Imagination Skyway on your favorite app or heading to imaginationskyway.com. And if you're ready to book your next Disney vacation, including to see Big Thunder Mountain Railroad at any Disney destination, or if you have questions as you prepare for your next Disney trip, be sure to contact our travel partners at KMV Travel, a sponsor of Imagination Skyway, and a boutique travel agency that helps families plan personalized vacations and create unforgettable memories on land and at sea. Kelly and her team, as I say, are such an amazing resource, and I encourage you to reach out to them directly, take advantage of their expert knowledge, their world-class service, and complimentary booking support by heading to kmvtravel.com/skyway, or simply find KMV Travel on social media and let them know Imagination Skyway sent you. As you disembark, please remember to remain fully seated until the podcast comes to a complete stop, then gather your belongings and watch your head and step as you exit. Thank you so much for riding aboard Imagination Skyway, and remember, if we can dream it, we can do it.